So net is everyone in this room should be doing SEO. Theoretically, if dollars allow for it, you should be doing paid search simultaneously to truly be getting the full incremental demand to your website. We're going to explain why. So first, I'm going to lay this out on the agenda for you. This is the first few parts in blue. This is the fluff. You don't have to really pay attention to this part. I'll talk about who I am, why I'm so great, where I work for. You guys can pretty much tune out mentally. My kids do when I do this presentation to them. And Daddy, why are you talking to us? Who I work for. Then around this part is when you start kind of reining it back in. You start paying attention because get ready, because this is when we start really talking about what matters. And this is less of me trying to stand up on stage and fulfill my ego. Then we'll get into some actual evidence of what I'm talking about, and then how to do this on your own. And once again, we're going to pretend that everyone in this room is doing best practices by participating in a minimum of SEO, no matter what site they work for, except for that one person who I think is an investor who just is here to steal information. Good for them. And then lastly, we'll do a takeaway. So let's talk about the fluff. Who am I? My name is John Kagan. I'm the VP of Search and Biddable Media for 9Rooftops, Cognition Media. I've been doing this for 17 years, which means I have 16 years of doing this for way too long and no other discernible skill sets in life except for marketing now. Prior to my time with 9Rooftops, I spent time with Forbes, Publicis, WPP, some of the big shops around the world. Fun fact, anyone here a Google Premier partner or a Google certified partner? No? Oh, well, okay, one person, so they're going to appreciate this. We were actually the very first agency in the world to ever be certified as Google Premier Partner back in 2016. We had no idea what it was, and then a trophy showed up at our house, and we said thank you. This day, it's still sitting in our house. My specialty is highly regulated industries: healthcare, pharmaceutical, hospital networks, and financial services. Anything that's governed by the FDA, the FTC, the SEC, or the FCC, I specialize in because I love reading government paperwork and red tape. It is so much fun. It also helps me sleep at night. Then just to prove that I'm not a complete psychopath, well, actually it doesn't prove it all, to show you that I might know what I'm doing, give you a few little things about why I'm so great. I was the very first recipient of the Google Search Excellence Award. If you look it up, that no longer exists, but it means I did something right or paid Google enough money. 2-time finalist of the Bing Agency Optimizer and Innovator of the Year Award, now called Microsoft Advertising Awards, but I refuse to call them like that because I don't believe in change when they are changing names. 3-time finalist for Search Innovation for the OMAs. Been named 3 times now to the top 25 most influential search marketers in the world. My team notes that every year my rank declines. So by this rate, that means I will fire my entire team this year when they make that comment again. Why am I here? I am so desperate for human contact. This is all I work from home for the past 9 years. I sit there with my dog. I needed to get out of the house. So some facts about me, because we need to fill a little time too. Prior to this, I was a firefighter. I know it's a natural transition into this, but that's what I did before this. And probably when Dave here fires me, I'll probably go back to doing that. I'm a devout fan of the New York Jets. Any Jets fans here? I got that when I did the New York one too. So pretty, yes, we're terrible. Any Real Housewives fans of any of the franchises? Thank you. Favorite franchise? That's a terrible answer. How about you? Okay, I respect that. I respect that. As long as it's not Dallas, it's perfectly okay, because honestly, no one cares about Dallas. And by the state of Connecticut, for tax code reasons, I own a small flock of chickens, not a flock of chickens, because my wife wants to be Amish, so my yard is littered with crops and small chickens. However, if you call it a flock in the state of Connecticut, I have to pay a different tax bracket, so we're calling it a small flock for now. If you want to see them, they are adorable. That's our Instagram handle, and you're going to see a lot of them. This is Daisy. Excuse my French, Daisy's a B-I-T-C-H, although some of you probably know that's not French, so whatever. That is not a look of admiration. She just bit me. But yeah. So quick to talk about 9Rooftops. We are a formation, we formed in June of 2020. We're actually 3 agencies that were brought together. It was Mark USA, who I was with, BLR Further, and BFG Communications. We came together to form 9Rooftops. Timing wasn't great because we were supposed to have 9 offices, so now we theoretically have 258 offices, which sounds really adorable until you realize it's one person per office with their dog and a flock of chickens. But our main offices are Chicago, Boston, Pittsburgh, Atlanta, Baltimore, New York City, Hilton Head, Birmingham, Alabama, Baltimore, and Miami. I hop from office to office. We do have folks that still go in because they're desperate to get out of their house as well. So part of I work for what's called Cognition Media. Cognition Media is a digital marketing operation, or the digital media wing of 9Rooftops. You may have heard something similar under Publicis with Viviki, or with WPP with Catalyst or Group M. Same concept. We're a linear operation that goes for the digital marketing execution, strategy, and planning for that. That's who I work for. So some of our clients, I tried to make them as locally relevant as possible. We touch roughly every vertical in the sun. I will note we are disproportionately heavy in healthcare, hospital networks, pharmaceutical, individualized clinics, but we also do a lot of QSR, so quick serve restaurants. So you all have Qdoba out here, so I try to make it relevant. A lot of CPGs, Nutsky's Bacon, CLR, which we now call Clear. We also run a number of state contracts as well, like most of the state of South Carolina, Pennsylvania State Lottery, Maryland State Lottery, etc. So here that's the company I work for, and this is proof that I actually work with clients and not just some person that wandered into the office. So let's get down to the nitty gritty. This is where you start to pay attention. This was the part that wasn't in blue, but not in red either. People tell me I can run effective search marketing strategy for my company by doing just SEO. I don't need to run paid search. And it goes a little bit like this. Yes, that is me. That is me in a giant chicken costume. And I do go, no, just no. So to further clarify, no, it's a bad strategy unless your name is eBay, Amazon. You are the only two that have ever been proven to successfully do that, which I don't believe anyone in here works for either of those. So I'm going to take a wild assumption. So therefore, those don't apply to you. So please don't consider stopping your paid search when you're running a holistic search strategy. I get asked about 4 times a year. So I was doing this for 17 years, so 60, 75 times now, whether or not I can run an effective and holistic search marketing program without losing any demand, and organic will just pick up whatever my paid search loses off. My career, I've only seen it once done effectively, and that was when I was working with eBay, and that would have been 2009, 2010. Harvard Business Journal put out a study in 2014 on this, citing eBay as one of the few random success examples. It just, I'm going to keep beating this all into your head here. It just doesn't work. So after they asked me this, can I do this? I say a variety of inappropriate things. A lot of them are bordering on, I'm going to get fired at the end of it. Sometimes not, sometimes good. And I start to go in and say, let me give you the insight of the theory of 1 + 1 = 3, the search theory of incrementality. I also discovered that you can't say theory of incrementality because that is trademarked by an entirely different and unrelated study, I found out. And I did get the cease and desist for that one. So after completing my explanation of the whole theory, 90% of them say, you know what, I get it. We're not going to bother with that. We're going to keep doing what we do. There is a small percentage that will say, you know what, John, I'm going to call your bluff. We're going to do it. And I, by contractually obligated to do it as long as it's documented that I throw a hissy fit about that. And 5% of them will never speak to me again, which in the end, let's be honest, that's still winning. People have really got to start laughing at some of these jokes. I need this for myself. Thank you for my self-esteem as we go. So when we do talk about the pausing of the SEM or the paid search with just organic rankings, the presence of SEM ads, they're vital support unit. So who here understands the concept of click-through rate? Everybody here should be. Okay. So the concept of click-through rate is often believed to be that on paid media or paid ads. The reality is you need to start looking at it a holistic problem. Every time your ad or your listing is visible, especially in search, whether it's an organic or paid listing, that counts towards a click-through rate. So we stop looking at our paid click-through rate and we start looking at it as a holistic number. What number of total clicks am I getting from the search engines, from either paid or organic to the site? Think of it as organic like this. So everybody here who has children, I assume their kids will do trick-or-treating at Halloween. Yes? No? Yep. I assume all those parents like to inspect for poisonous pills like I do. Yep. Yeah, don't lie. So I go through this concept all the time. So I say to my kids, look, kids, I'm not looking for any of your delicious, delicious candy. I'm just going to inspect and make sure there's no poison in them. So, and I go in with the thought process, I don't really care what I'm getting, just as long as it's chocolatey and delicious. So there's no preset notion unless it's an almond joy. And if it's an almond joy, I don't want to speak to you because those are disgusting. So I lay out my kids' candy like this. Now, when you look at it like this methodology, you think of it as, all right, this is organic listings. There's no priority leaning towards one type or the other. This is just my basic Google organic listings. You can call it a local 3-pack, if you will, one of each type of candy. All right, nothing stands out to me for any which reason. So then what I do is I try and simulate a paid search plus SEO ranking scenario. So what we've done here is we took a few more pieces out. We added a piece at the top and a piece at the bottom to simulate the regular text ads at the top and the bottom of the SERP. And then we put 4 off to the side to simulate a local search, paid local ad, and PLAs or Google Shopping ads. Now, when I look at this, and you all look at this up on the screen, what are you leaning to? Yes, Roz. You're really kind of blowing this as I go. We'll get to that soon, but thanks. Thank you. At no point was questions ever asked if we could have you participate, but don't worry, we'll get to it. We'll get to it, but we'll get to it. So let's just pretend for a second. I searched chocolate delightful, delicious treat. Now then, when you look at this type of result, which now theoretically contains both paid and organic, what way are you more likely leaning to? Now someone can answer. Roz? What? But what brand of candy, I should say? Exactly. This what we have here is created a scenario of a higher degree of brand relevance, branding, which technically search isn't designed to do, and brand confidence level because we are both present in the paid and the organic listings simultaneously, as well as a local 3-pack. So, and net, yeah, I just went for the Reese cups. So, the 1 + 1 = 3 theory doesn't sound like makes sense. Terrible way to do your taxes, I discovered, but this is how it rolls. When I talk about search incrementality, I have to go back and look at our industry experts, the smartest folks within our industry, and do it in one way or another. And I believe we can all agree it's Khalees. Yes, exactly. And she had this song a couple years back, the milkshake. My milkshake brings all the boys to the yard. And they're like, it's better than yours. Damn right, it's better than yours. I can teach you, but I have to charge. Who here thinks she was talking about her physical features? You were wrong. And you. No, she was actually talking about a search marketing strategy. We'll get to that in a second. This is what happens when HR finds out that I've presented this after being told several times not to. I will note, though, that the previous one was Cardi B's Bodak Yellow. Yeah, you can see why I had to swap out this one and was not approved and just went with it before anyone questioned it. So let's talk about her thought process, Miss Khalees, because I honestly don't know if she has a last name, and how she actually took her song and actually made it relevant to a day-to-day search marketing holistic strategy. So my milkshake brings all the boys to the yard. This is often confused with her citing of her own physical features that it brings suitors to her. No. This actually means that she has a methodology for a holistic approach to search that does in fact drive incrementality or incremental visits despite no additional lift in impressions. That's the big thing to remember when you run paid search and paid organic search. You are not driving incrementality of a searcher, you're driving incrementality to your website. And they're like, it's better than yours. This is in no way, shape, or form an indication that her physical features exceed that of her peers, which is, once again, I can understand where there might be some confusion there. That's not the case whatsoever. She's actually, but this is actually a description of the search consumer confidence level, very similar to that, the example I showed with the candy earlier, on a brand when both SEO and SEM are visually present on brand terms, Roz. Yep, there we go. Damn right it's better than yours. So this is not going back to reaffirm her previous statement that her on brand terminology that she is better than you. What she's actually here is a slightly different but similar story of saying, it's better than yours, and I'll prove it by using non-brand queries in the exact same scenario. If you have a strong organic or SEO game, you're ranking high, you can supplement it with the paid search ad. So here she is mouthing off and pretty much saying, I'm doing it with both. So now we're probably wondering, getting towards it, is I can teach you, but I have to charge. She's not referencing a required physical payment from that of her friends or fans to learn how she has attained her physical features, maybe through surgery or working out, etc. No. What this is talking about is an actual physical, or not physical, but an actual investment level into paid media to be able to run the ads simultaneously on the search engine results page next to organic listings to help drive that degree of incrementality. I don't know if I could have explained this any simpler, and I believe we're all in alignment. That was exactly what this discussion was about. Yes? There we go. It's the most unified response I've had yet. So let's be honest. She was right. SEO by itself provides, and we're using these numbers just purely illustratively, a visitor of 1. SEM by itself, and if you have SEM running by itself, no organic listings, you've made some terrible life and business decisions, by the way. It brings a visitor of 1. But together, we actually see an increased degree of incrementality. The often theory is that when paid is not present, organic will pick it up. Not always the case. But having them both visible at the same time, you're going to have a holistic higher CTR, which means you're going to see not just necessarily 1 when you're running both, but you may see an excess of 1. Highly recommended to test this out on your own. I've always debated about putting this into my presentation. I know what you're thinking is this is what part you're debating about, but yes. I do not advocate for running solo with just SEO or just SEM whatsoever, but I am a huge advocate for testing out this methodology, albeit no more than roughly 6 to 8 weeks, but it's a good way to do it. If you have the question, go ahead and test it out. There may be repercussions for you from an educational-based purpose, so give people a heads up in advance. Like I said earlier, there are only a few brands that have been able to ever successfully pull this off. Almost every brand that can successfully pull it off here is a large-scale, well-branded marketplace that runs a lot of traditional media, a lot of CTV, a lot of linear television, some radio. I'm going to go out on a limb and say none of you all here are Amazon as well. So probably not right for you. So remember, this is about a game of survival. I'm also a huge fan of The Office and couldn't think of a better way to, or couldn't find a better spot to put Creed into this presentation. He really serves very little purpose in this slide, but I want to make sure you all were paying attention because we're getting more into the important nitty-gritty stuff. So I assume this meme here has now got your attention, so we're going to keep that attention as we flow through it. So the theory of 1 + 1 = 3, the search incrementality theory. Very important. I am not the creator or discoverer of this theory. This theory dates back as long as I've been in the industry. However, documented evidence of it is limited. The earliest known documentation I could have found with it was actually in a print version of Digital Marketing News, which no longer exists, by Melissa Mackey. She's a CEO, I think, at 360i or one of the other competing agencies. She was the first one I've ever found that was able to document it, going back in 2009. The first formal analysis where everything was available to the public was actually done by 2 NYU PhD students, Sha Yang and Ananya Ghosh. I wasn't able to hunt down Sha, but I was able to hunt down Ananya. He gave me great overview for it, and he shared the actual PhD paper. You all will get this presentation afterwards, and you can go into the Cliff Notes and read the presentation. It's about 68 pages long in very, very tiny print with a lot of equations to this day that I do not understand. If you need to fall asleep at night or have about 7 hours free, it's an interesting read. But I always have to do that disclaimer because I'm not the founder or creator of these theories. So the theory, while seemingly illogical, is as follows. Assume organic operating by itself produces 100 visitors. Okay. Assume paid search operating by itself. Once again, if you only have paid search operating by itself, you've made terrible business decisions. Gets you 100 visitors. Now, theoretically, since they are both showing in the Google or Bing SERP, let's be honest, some people use Bing, some people in here even use Yahoo for some reason. They come together, you would still only get 100 because you're not driving an increased level of impression or search demand. The reality is, though, combined, they will exceed that of the 100. Technically, you could say the number starts at 1 + 1 = 1.01, but honestly, that's not a very sexy formula, and I find engages people less, so we call it 1 + 1 = 3. net, you're driving a degree of increased incrementality into your site via search, whether it's through Google, Bing, or Yahoo. Although I should note that those who don't already know, Yahoo is supplied by Bing for search results. So you're probably thinking, all right, John, you're talking a big game. You're wearing a fancy suit. You got this weird obsession with chickens, but you haven't presented any evidence to you. And to that, I will say, first of all, you're correct. I haven't. And second of all, this suit is awesome. So let's go into the actual evidence. So we have a CPG brand. Actually, they were CPG. They actually turned to D2C at the start of the pandemic. They literally sell bacon online. For those that consume it, like myself being the good Jew that I am, it is amazing, amazing bacon. They also do a decent ham. Not a great turkey breast, but that's besides the point. And we tested this theory with them probably about 2 years ago, solely by accident. And I'll explain why in a second. Large consumables, yum, bacon, yeah, progressives go. So they're not a huge brand, so they're able to still get away with paying Google by credit card. What they didn't realize was someone in their accounting department went and made some very questionable purchases with their credit card, and their credit card was essentially stolen. American Express was notified and shut off it. We didn't find this out for 2 days because it happened on a Friday afternoon. We discovered that we were no longer rotating Sunday evening, and we stopped running paid search until they could get a new credit card number. They are a very old school operation, so technically we had the credit card number right away. They said, no, we're going to wait till we have the new physical credit card before we put it into the system. So we're just not going to run this for a while. I can hear some of y'all's teeth grinding just like mine. I try to explain to them how the internet works and how they can read off numbers to me, but neither here nor there. So paid search was abruptly turned off, and we were forced to rely on their organic listings, which honestly aren't bad, but they're not stellar. So at this point, organic search and paid search, each of them made up about 23% of the visits to the site. I do apologize. I keep meaning to make this a larger graphic for you all to see, but I just haven't gotten around to it. And combined, they're driving about 35 to 36% of total website sales. If anyone wants to know how much money is made in bacon online, we did $27 million last year. People are willing to pay for bacon by any means necessary. So when the Google SEM effort turned off, the combined Google search efforts on the shoulders of the Google organic traffic, we said, all right, organic, we need you to pick this up. I will note Bing was still running, but Bing only runs at 10% of what Google normally runs. So Google organic contribution of the total site traffic would have had to have risen to between 42 and 46% of total site traffic to compensate for the loss of Google paid search we were running. In reality, though, it did not. It only made it to about 36%. Simultaneously, our sales that were sitting around 36% only rose to 29%. Now, organic did increase, but it was not able to compensate for the loss that paid search brings. Now, you're probably saying, well, John, what's this have to do with anything? The primary source of our traffic coming in is for paid search is brand keywords. So people were still searching the brand name constantly, but because they weren't seeing our paid ad and our organic listing, and they were seeing all these other resellers, because we are sold through Amazon, eBay, various marketplaces, they were going to the sale to do it through the marketplace rather than through us and going on that way. Why? You're probably thinking it doesn't matter, John, because they still get the sale. Any marketer that's worth their weight knows having the sale done on your own website is worth 5x what one single transaction is, because you start accounting for a lifetime value scenario. So we ran this. This went for about week, 2 weeks, because once again, they didn't feel comfortable reading credit card numbers off to me on the phone, which really says something about how they view me as a person. So we did get it back in place. We rolled it back in, and upon relaunching, the Google SEM efforts data returned to near pre-shutoff levels. Everything essentially picked right back up where it left off. And the biggest takeaway we came away with on this one was, hey, organic can't do it on its own. You do need visible presence to help instill that demand ultimately. Here are some pretty graphs that I was told to put into this presentation to make it look more visible. It is literally everything I just said, but in a pretty graph format, so I don't feel that I shouldn't have to represent it. But everyone look at the graphs, because it took me 25 minutes to do it, because I'm not very good at making graphs. I'll give you a moment to digest that. So let's go on to example number 2. This is an automotive accessories brand. They specialize in tires, brakes, pretty much anything but the car as a whole entity. So this one was actually a planned out test. They were very adamant, and this was specifically on branded keywords. They have very high organic rankings, very strong on the brand side, and they wanted to stop paying for brand terms. We put up a hissy fit on this one and said, this is a bad idea. Here is why. Showed them all the evidence, showed them previous case studies, et cetera, et cetera. The worst part was we ended up having to do this test 3 different times during the year. The first time we discovered was whenever there was a stimulus check, people went and bought cars or parts for cars. And our first 2 tests lined up right during stimulus check time. So our data had to be thrown out because the aggregate traffic coming into the site far superseded pre-levels, and we couldn't justify it. So we had to redo it on a 3rd time. So right now we're looking at the 3rd one. So here we're looking at as our primary KPI is quotes. You have to get a quote before you can proceed to make a purchase or have anything done. And we're looking at sessions. So Google entities, the Google EX is just our organic list, our organic local 3-pack listings. Combined, they make about 70% of our visits to the site and about 73% of our quotes from the pre-test period. So this was our baseline. So during the test, the number of visits and quotes contributed as a percentage total were relatively the same as pre-test. We still had the same percentages. However, the aggregate volume of visitors to the site dropped by 11% and our quotes dropped by 14%. Keep in mind, the only thing we stopped during this time period was our branded paid search keywords, just to show the value and the strength of it. So we were not able to recover, or organic, I should say, was not able to recover on the brand search queries, despite the fact that we have such a strong organic ranking on our brand terms. 2 weeks post-test, we revealed some kind of mixed results. The total contribution of the site visitors and conversions remained the same or near the same levels. Visits to the site went back up, increased about 6% over our test levels, so half of our pre-test, so it was kind of splitting the middle. But our total quote level did decline. That one we would actually later find out. I found this out about 3 weeks ago. There was actually a technical issue on the site, which is why the quote level never returned. Not making any sense, but we were able to prove that the sessions, when organic runs your brand keywords only, it is not going to survive. You're going to lose that degree of confidence from the consumer. So we got one more. I was trying to think of a snazzy, fun headline for this, and I couldn't, so I just put in whatever I could think of, and we're going to call this the cleaner that couldn't clean up. This is a CPG brand for sales of home cleaners. And our primary focus here is pure traffic because they're 99% sold through retailers. They do no D2C sales from their site. So we got a very weird ROI analysis that came back to them, to the brand from all media, and indicated somehow that paid search was the lowest indirect contributor of ROI. And when I say the lowest, I don't mean it was only 104% ROI. No, it said 23%. Granted, it said YouTube was 136%. So to this day, I still question the validity of that. But that's just my own personal gripe and something at some point my therapist is going to help me work through. But we're getting there. It's baby steps. So at the time of the analysis, Google paid search and SEO combined made up roughly 70% of our visitors and sessions. 50% was going to organic, 20% coming in through paid search. Specifically, Google branded paid search accounted for 12 out of the 20 points, or about 60% of the Google paid search traffic was on the brand terminology. So what happened? The client looked at the analysis, said, I don't want to pay for brand traffic anymore. It's a bad idea. We shouldn't have to pay for it. I want it off immediately. To which I immediately thought of this image. I wanted to bring it up on a video conference. I was told not to because I would be fired. So it is why it's in this presentation here for you. The decision was dictated, and I will strongly use this, was dictated to us. We did not have a choice in the matter, to cease bidding on all brand terms and let organic rankings handle it. And I will note their organic rankings aren't too shabby. I can't reveal the name of the brand, but it's fairly straightforward and you'll recognize it in a heartbeat. So they're like, all right, we have strong organic rankings. We're not going to lose anything. We shouldn't be paying for brand search if it has such a low ROI, yada, yada, yada. So they dictated turn off. I was not a fan. I made that quite vocally clear. Non-brand would remain at a continuous funding level. So patio cleaner, toilet cleaner, et cetera, it would remain in place at its original funding levels. By this logic, Google Organic on the brand terms, if it was to compensate for the brand paid search, would need to increase by 24% of the site visits and visitors, going from a 50% contribution to a 62% contribution. I'm going to take a quick poll here. Who here thinks that worked out for them? Good. Half of you aren't paying attention and half of you agree. So let's just say the theory did not pan out well for the brand. By any sort of logic, the organic data should increase, if not a little bit, by at least the amount surrendered by the paid search brand keywords that went offline. No. I meant to put a bit funnier meme in here, but didn't get around to it, so we're just going with no. Organic search actually declined from 50% contribution to 37% contribution. There's some working theories here that, hey, when they're not seeing both, it actually not only did it have a negative impact on total traffic, but it actually dropped the non-brand traffic. We did find the same number of queries through our Google Search Console telling us it was a constant level, but theoretically, organic should increase, at least not by everything, at least by a tiny bit. It actually just plummeted. It plummeted by about 30% for them from the pure contribution point. What we essentially said was Google SEM without the aid of brand dropped from a contribution of 20% of site traffic to 8%, 12 points, roughly exactly what you lost from the total contribution simultaneously of the organic side. So one could almost theoretically say the impact was actually a 24% impact rather than a 13% impact. The logic of operating without brand SEM and organic for compensating has been deemed as an overall net loss on all Google entities to it. However, we have not done our formal ROI analysis to see how the ROI has been impacted, but that will be coming up probably by the next time I do this presentation in a month. So if you all want to go to Atlanta next month and see this, go for it. So the evidence of the theory, in all three scenarios, it is a constant evidence. When dropping a single source or reduced source of search traffic, whether it's organic or from the paid side, organic itself has not proven out to be able to deliver the same amount of inbound site traffic when both are present together. Most common working theory is you're not seeing the brand as frequent, as often, and it starts to deter the consumer as a one-off listing. So, once again, I should note, I do not advocate whatsoever of turning off SEM when you have it and relying solely on SEO. That being said, I know there's fiscal reasons it can happen, but I don't advocate for it. But I do advocate for testing it if you ever have the question. So let's talk about how to understand this measure. There's two different ways to do this. There's a simplistic approach, and there is a more detailed approach. And honestly, there's 5 steps to each, and 4 out of 5 are identical, but you'll see the difference in a moment. So first, let's talk about the simplistic approach. First, understand your production of SEM and organic and tally it up together. Basically, know from a working, I typically recommend getting a weekly average over a 4 to 8 week period. So you know it, exclude holidays and peak seasonality to it. So you have a constant level from each one and then put it together for your average. So you now know what the constant average production level is. Pause the SEM, whether it is all paid or if it's just brand, non-brand. We run this for 1 to 3 weeks. For brands with lower traffic, typically less than 1,000 visitors per week, you may have to extend this up to 6 weeks to get statistical significance. There's some great statistical significant calculators out there to help you decide what the right range is for you or what traffic level you need to do this. Track your organic and SEM production during the pause. All right, so if paid search was completely off, then there's nothing to track. If you're reducing it down to just non-brand, just track the production of non-brand, see if that changes whatsoever. And look at the organic level as it progresses simultaneously. And note if there's been any change in the combination. Basically, don't set it and forget it. Monitor this data the entire way through your study. Reactivate the SEM and go back to normal level operations and look at this for the same period of time that you ran the test for. So if you were off for 3 weeks, don't make a determination on the evaluation of the performance for at least 3 weeks, or use at least 3 weeks of data. If it's 6 weeks, use 6 weeks worth of data. There is 2 different ways to do the measurement though. There is anticipated, which means you're looking at a 12-month calendar of your historical weekly average of data, or there is a actualized one, which says this is what we've been seeing for the 3 weeks prior, et cetera, et cetera. If you talk to data science, they want anticipated. If you talk to analytics, they want actualized. Whichever way is preferred, go nuts. Always take into account macroeconomic factors. Lastly, on step 5, compare pre and post data and show the difference to the KPIs. This is when you can take your data and get a really smug look on your face and this undeserved sense of self-satisfaction. Go up to your CMO and say, look, proved it. If you still have a job, that's great. If you don't have a job, I understand. Probably shouldn't have listened to me. So now we look at the more detailed approach. Honestly, step 1 and step 2 are exactly the same as the other one. Step 3 is where it gets a little bit more detailed. This is when you start tracking the organic production during the pause and note if there's been actually any changes. Everybody here running Google Search Console or a similar organic impression? I see one person nodding here. I see 2. There's 68 people in here and there's only 2. No, I got her. Yeah, that's really concerning. Is everyone running an alternative to Google Search Console on their sites? Oh, goddamn. That's a problem. If you all, for those 2 that are running it, this applies to you all, to measure the organic impressions and search demand simultaneously so you can do a more granular level. This is to help prove out that there's been no change in the organic impression level or the pure aggregate impression level and demand on your brand terms. It's really only ideal for brand, I should note, to cut that out, but you have to be monitoring those organic impressions simultaneously. And then steps 4 and 5 are the same. Once again, I keep forgetting to make a bigger, larger graph so that data looks prettier and you understand it, and it has this big wow factor to it. So I started early. We're probably going to end early, but we have plenty of questions. You've got a question, I see. Sure. And you can also get the presentation either directly from me, and I think that we actually give it out afterwards too. Not a problem. Not a problem. You got like pictures of me going like this and all that, right? Simultaneously. Good. So the takeaway. Yes, the concept of SEO and SEM together is that of 1 + 1 = 3. Very few brands, I'm going to go out on a limb and say no one in this room works one of those brands, can get away with having a successful, holistic, full potential search marketing strategy without running SEM and SEO together. If you've never run SEM before, then you have no benchmark. Okay, good for you. If you've run it and stopped it, that's when you're going to start to lose out. But I also understand there's fiscal factors. In recent years, there have been similar large brands that have gone and complained, and at least one lawsuit. I believe Slack complained. Anybody here work for 1-800-CONTACTS? Nope. They have filed multiple lawsuits against multiple brands complaining over this, that they have to run paid search because their competitors do it. They've lost 19 lawsuits at this point now and are about to lose out to Warby Parker in federal court now. Please don't go that route. Please understand that this is a business investment level, and don't try and bully or commit collusion, because that is exactly what they're trying to do. And while I'd never advocate for turning off SEM, if you want to learn, do it. Just make sure it's in control and notify someone else in advance that you're doing this. Otherwise, you're going to have a very terrible morning. I wrote this presentation for the first conference where I was the last person to speak and forgot to update it. Please don't go home yet. If you enjoyed it, let me know. Huge fan of the Jets. Always just got to throw it there. If you love it, hate it, send me questions, comments, concerns. I can also take questions of this. I am more likely to respond to a Twitter tweet, especially mean tweets, than I am for my email. My boss can attest that I never respond to emails. So with that being said, what other questions, if any, are there? Yes, Roz.
Hang on.
Oh.
Whoa, that's loud. I'm naturally loud. So what would the percent of spend mix be for brand terms to be optimal but without overspending? To work in partnership with SEO, yeah.
So the answer is there is no optimal number. There's always a minimum, and that varies by brand demand and what's funneling the demand for that. Typically, when I see most brands, brand traffic, when it's fully funded, will make up about 70 to 80% of paid search traffic. However, it only costs a fraction of that of non-brand. So it's a nice long way of saying there's no true optimal number. It all comes down to pure percentages of the actual inbound traffic rather than the investment. Typically, you want organic traffic, whether it's Google, Bing, or someone else, to make up at least 50% of your total traffic, Paid search is typically number 2 or actually number 3 after direct to site. Paid search is typically number 3, and that's probably not higher than 25%. So if you're investing levels that are causing paid search to exceed that of 25% of your site traffic, then that means you're probably not doing enough on the organic side.
Got it. One follow-up. How long does it take to propagate results, assuming, let's say, web traffic's 100,000 a month?
So there's varying levels on this one. When I talk to my data science team, they're always like 12 weeks for high, no matter what it is. I find for high volume clients, you can get away with between 2 and 3 weeks for running the test. And that's 2 to 3 weeks of being in the test, 2 to 3 weeks of pre-test, and 2 to 3 weeks of post-test. If you're at that high of volume, assuming that there's no macroeconomic factors or you're in a peak seasonality. Other questions? No? Okay then. That's all I got.